In this episode of the Dads Making a Difference podcast, I am going into depth with the 6 pillars of growth of DMD. I'm going to challenge you to grow in 6 different areas, committing to 1% improvements in each. You can't do 100% change in one day, but you can definitely do 1% changes over 100 days. What are your next 100 days going to look like? I challenge you to dive into these 6 areas of growth and truly become a dad making a difference. Hello, my friend. Welcome to another episode of the Dads Making a Difference podcast. My name is Cam Hall. I'm your host. And I'm sitting here looking over the last few months, the last 30 episodes of the Dads Making a Difference podcast. And I have this massive smile on my face and my heart is racing a little bit because when I launched this podcast back in June, I was challenged to define what Dads Making a Difference was going to be about, what it was, what it wasn't, where it was going, what the mission was, what the vision was. I was challenged, and these are all good things to be challenged with, of course. And when I started Dads Making a Difference, I had this idea of it focusing on, 4 things: family, fitness, faith, and finance. Great. I could have left it there, and you've probably heard this before. Family, faith, fitness, finance. Great filter, great source of encouragement, lots of information there to help you succeed and grow in those areas. But what I also found is that was everywhere. Every dad group, every mastermind podcast I was listening to in the dad space of family, faith, fitness, finance, and friendship, these F's. And so then I challenged myself to come up with something a little bit more specific to the conversations that we were going to have. And I came up with these P's, these, personal health or physical health and passion with your spouse and providing for your family and all these things. And so, yes, I get there all starting with the letter P. And I've been I jokingly teased a little bit that I love alliteration. But 4 F's, I had the 5 P's, and nothing seemed to really fit until now. Until now, when I look back at the episodes that we've recorded, the amazing conversations that I have been blessed to have with our guests, and I know what this is about. This is about you, this is about me, and this is about our growth. Growth. Those of you who know me are like, oh, here goes Cam on growth again. But I love growth. I love the idea of pushing ourselves to be better in a single step at a time. In my career, in education, we've heard lots about growth. Where I work, we hear lots about growth. But from a context of a growth mindset, that's where it really kind of started. Carol Dweck is a researcher and author, and she wrote about growth mindset. And this blew up all over the place. People were talking about having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And yes, that's important. I love that research. I appreciate Carol Dweck's book, Growth Mindset. It's great, but that's not the growth I'm talking about. So what am I talking about when I'm talking about growth? Well, to me, this is what growth is. Growth is a commitment and an intentionality to push yourself outside of your comfort zone so that you can improve in a specific area, skill, mindset, or practice. So growth is a commitment and intentionality. Intentionality is a big word there. To push yourself outside of your comfort zone so that you can improve in a specific area, mindset, skill, or practice. That's how I view growth. And I'm looking at the last 30 episodes of this podcast, which have been so amazing. And I hope you've dove into those. And each one of those conversations challenges us to grow. So what is Dads Making a Difference? What is this about? What have I defined it as? Well, Dads Making a Difference is here as a podcast, as a mastermind, as a community, as a movement, as a brotherhood, whatever you want to call it. It is here to challenge you to grow so that you can make an impact in the lives of your family, in your business, and the community around you. But what type of growth? Well, there are 6 steps to personal growth, 6 key pillars of growth, which I've identified that we have spoken about in some way or another over the last, 6 months already. And those are these. Dad's making a difference, is committed to helping you grow emotionally, physically, intellectually, professionally, financially, and spiritually. Let's say that again. Dad's making a difference is here to challenge you to grow emotionally, physically, intellectually, professionally, financially, and spiritually. That's what this is about. So let's dive into that for a second and why it's important. Now, let's think for a moment what life would be like without growth, without a commitment to growth. I think you would sit there right now and you would agree with me that a life without a commitment to growth is a pretty boring life. It's a life of mundane. It's a life of acceptance. It's a life of just being satisfied. And let's, heaven forbid, we're settling for where we are. There's no one out there as a dad who's like, yeah, right now I'm good with where I'm at. I don't want to get any better at being a dad. I'm just going to settle. I don't think there's anyone listening to this right now who would say that. There's no one who's like, I got it all figured out with my spouse. Everything's great. Well, I hope everything's great, but even if things are great, I'm sure there's areas that you want to get stronger in. You want to grow it. You want to improve it. Financially, I know that's a big thing. I've had my head against that for years. I know I'm still growing there. And I'm sure you are too, because finances can be the one thing in the home that tears the home apart without ever being said. We've heard about that in the last couple of conversations. Man, we just had a conversation with Lance Beline a few weeks back where he talked about talking about money in the home and how not having healthy conversations about finances can tear a relationship apart. So I challenge you to grow. I challenge you to grow with me. I challenge you to grow with each other, to grow in your community, and to grow as an individual. Because through our spiritual, emotional, physical, financial, professional, intellectual growth, we will then be able to make an impact, to make a difference, to be dads making a difference. We will be able to impact those closest to us. We'll be impacting those we work with or those we lead, and we'll be impacting our community. Because through all of these conversations, another word has popped. Another word has come to the surface. And that word is legacy. I think back to the conversation I had with Blake Brewer about the legacy letter and Blake's amazing story. If you haven't gone and listened to that episode, you have to. Blake shared a story of a tragic event on a family holiday involving his father and how a letter that he received transformed his life in his direction to make an impact in the lives of others through the legacy letter. So the word legacy has also come up to the surface. So I'm thinking about growth and I'm thinking about legacy, and I'm getting super excited because I know we're heading into the end of the year where, let's be honest, guys, I'm recording this. It's November the 27th. It's just past American Thanksgiving. We're heading into the holidays, and you have to admit you're already reflecting on your year. You're reflecting on the year that was in 2022, and you're looking ahead already with 30 days or more left in this year to 2023. And we have this habit of closing off our end, bookending this year with January 1st and December 31st, and closing that book and saying, I'm going to start a new chapter on January 1st, 2023. No, you're not. You're going to continue the story that you're writing right now. So I challenge you, as you're reflecting at the end of this year, write down these 6 things and say, where have I grown? 1, spiritually, 2, emotionally, 3, physically, 4, financially, 5, professionally, and 6, intellectually. And reflect that way, because it's going to help you see where you're headed as a dad or a husband or a spouse or a leader, business owner, employee, whatever have you. So challenge you to reflect on those 6 areas right now. And how do we commit to growth? Well, Cam, this sounds great. I get that dad's making a difference is about helping men grow. But how do we do that? Well, I'm going to give you some examples because I've been struggling with something physically over the last few weeks. I jumped into the pool to swim lengths, like on purpose, from one end to the pool to the other, with not chasing my kids, not swimming away from sharks, like actually just swimming back and forth in the pool. And it's been 21 years since I've been in the pool swimming lengths. I did this bronze cross, bronze medallion, life saving thing when I was back in college. Man, 2000, 2001, 21 years since I've swam lengths. And I'm going to tell you, I consider myself to be a pretty fit guy. I made 25 meters that first morning. I got up 4:45. I'm in the pool at 5. That alone is a feat for me. Like, I am not a morning person, but here I am in this cold pool, 5 in the morning. I'm like, what am I doing? I start swimming. Well, halfway across the first 25 meters, I'm thinking to myself, I'm drowning for sure. How do I get my breaths in? What's the cadence? What's the rhythm? I get to the other end of the pool, luckily, without going under. And I put my arms on the side of the pool. I can feel my heart beating so hard in my chest. This thud-dum, thud-dum. Like, I feel like my whole body had this pulse. And I was like, what am I doing right now? I was so uncomfortable. It was so, man, I was so out of my comfort zone in that moment. But you know what I did? I turned around, I kicked off that wall, and I went back the next 25 meters. And so for a week and a half, that's what I did, 25 meters at a time, counting my breaths in between, challenging myself not to, one, drown, two, not to throw up, and three, just to keep going. Well, I had a big win the other day. I would manage to work myself up over the last 3 weeks. I've worked myself up to where I got to do, I think, 75 meters nonstop. I went there, back there, and that's 3 lengths, 25 meters. 3 weeks ago, I couldn't even imagine to do that. But I can see these little improvements. I can feel them in my body. And I was pumped as I took myself out of the freezing cold pool at 5:25 in the morning to go sit in the hot tub. Like every 41, 42-year-old man feels like he wants to, sit in the hot tub in the morning. But that experience, this tapering, this training, this taking small steps to make improvements, I sat there in the hot tub and I just reflected. I was like, this is what it's about. Yeah, this is challenging. I haven't drowned this last week, so that's a win. But what it's about in life. How many times have you gone out with something in mind? Let's talk about in your family, relationally, something's going on, and you're going through something that feels like that first 25 meters, where an event happens or something goes through and you can feel your heart pounding and it's in your chest and your brain's telling you you can't do this, but there's a little bit of your brain that's telling you you can, and you just don't want to give up. So you turn around, you kick off the wall, and you keep going. You do that in your personal life. You do that in your professional life. Man, I'm coming out of a season in my professional life. Guys, I went on a medical leave at the beginning of 2022 because of the level of stress in my life. My doctor put me out. I've shared that story on here. I told you everything was fine. Everybody's like, oh, you look so healthy. Everything's good. And my body started to tell me otherwise. Next thing I know, I find myself on the sideline watching the world go by, or that's what it felt like, as I started to recalibrate what was important. And it was the best 3 months of my life. Well, not the best 3 months of my life, but the best 3 months of this year, recalibrating for me in my life what was important. And I want you to do the same. You don't have to get up at 4:45 and swim lengths in the pool. I encourage you to do so we have something to talk about. We can joke about it later. But you don't have to do that. All I'm asking you to do is this: commit to 1% improvement. Challenge yourself to small steps in these 6 areas of your life and grow. Challenge yourself to be uncomfortable. Challenge yourself to go outside of your comfort zone so that you are pushed to improve. You have no choice. I guess you have a choice. You can quit. You can shrivel up. You can, settle. But I'm going to challenge you to grow. especially in the season where it's so easy to sit back, crush the food, visit with family, hit the reset button on January 1st. What you do in the next 31 days, you're listening to this till the end of the year. What you do in the next 31 days is going to set the tone with how you start the next 365. So don't brush it off. Commit to grow. I think about emotional growth. Be available. For at least one moment each day, make yourself emotionally available to those around you. It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day demands of work, of running the kids from A to B, to managing a business or leading a community or leading a team in your business. And while we may feel emotional, sad, happy, exhausted, frustrated, excited, while we may feel emotional, many of us men aren't making ourselves emotionally available to those who need us most: our spouse, our kids, our friends, our loved ones. So take one moment each day to check in emotionally with those closest to you. 1% improvements, one step at a time. What does that look like emotionally? It looks like I give my wife a hug when I see her, every time. In the morning, when I get home from work, when she goes to work. That's a simple thing. I saw a little post this last week on social media. I was unfortunately being sucked in down the rabbit hole. We've been there, and that's another thing, that 1%. I'm trying to put my phone down. But I saw this post about this scientific study that shows that a 6-second kiss between a husband and a wife has exponential effects in their relationship, and that feeling of connection and belonging and togetherness. And so this last week, I've challenged myself: 6 seconds of kissing. Do that with your wife. And you might be thinking, oh, Kevin, that's a long time. Come on, it's not. It's 6 seconds out of your life. Do it. That's one step emotionally you can grow in this week. Physically, I told you about my swimming story. This is a tough one, but a huge barrier for many men in their physical growth is saying that they don't have the time. And I'm going to challenge you on that. It's not that you don't have the time. You have a priorities issue. Guys, if you are looking to grow and you are truly looking to make a difference in your life and the life of those around you, you can't ever give I don't like saying excuses, but you can't give the excuse, I don't have the time. If someone says, I don't have the time to me, in my brain right away, I'm like, you have the time, you have a priorities issue. You are not prioritizing what matters most. You are getting sucked into your phone like I did on Tuesday this week for, I think it was like 20 minutes. I was embarrassed by 20 minutes. I spent my day sitting there just getting sucked down. People get sucked in much longer. But that's 20 minutes I could have spent talking with my wife, building our relationship, wrestling with my son. You don't have a time issue. You have a priorities issue. And I want to challenge you to grow in that area. Man, financial. I think about a conversation with Lance Boleyn a few weeks back. I said this already. 1%, make a budget. You're getting to the end of the year. We just came out of Black Friday. People are spending so much money this weekend. And then they're going to have this buyer's regret over the next couple of weeks heading into the holidays. Why do you overspend in the holidays? Kim and I have done it before. We're much better now with budgeting and understanding where our money's going. But one thing Lance said in our interview that was so powerful that we got into was how money has become taboo in conversation in the household. So here's my challenge to you for your 1%, if your 1% is in financial growth right now. Just simply map out your financial goals, or open up a healthy conversation about money in the home with your kids, with your spouse. Teach them a lesson on saving versus investing versus spending. Just one thing. Don't do it all. Don't have all those conversations that I just said. Just choose one and do that this week. Professionally, I challenge you with this. What difference do you want to make? What difference do you want to make? When you go to work and you're in that place of employment, what difference do you want to make? If there's no difference, you are in the wrong place. You need to leave. If you are there and you don't have an answer to that question of what difference you want to make, you need to leave that job and find something else. So what difference do you want to make? And then ask yourself, are you taking the steps, doing the simple actions each day that are pushing you in the direction of making that difference? Because if you're not, you are stuck. You're settling. We had an interview. I can't remember who said it in the first few episodes, who said, if you find yourself in a rut, think of this. The only difference between a rut and a grave is the depth. I was like, whoa, man, true. So don't find yourself in a rut. If you have no difference that you want to make, you are in a rut. So find a way to make a difference. Commit to that. Commit to taking the steps, the simple actions each day that will push you in the direction of making that difference. It could be in your job, it could be in your business, your service, whatever it might be. I'll touch on intellectual. I think I've got all of them so far. I've talked about emotional, physical, financial, professional. I'll talk about intellectual. This is a simple one for me, guys. Read. Read. It's that simple. If you want to improve your intellectual growth, I challenge you to read. Audiobook, paper book. I got paper books. I got audio versions of these books and paper books because that works for me. I'll listen to when I work out. I'll also listen to podcasts like you're listening to this one now. But I encourage you to read. If you read 1 page a day, that's your 1%. Maybe it's 1 page a day. Just start with that. Maybe it's 1 chapter a day. Maybe it's 1 book a month. Whatever it is, do it. A man who's committed to growth, committed to making a difference, needs to expand his knowledge, his understanding of the world around him, his acceptance and challenging of the world around him, and his thought process. There is no better way to do all of that than through reading. We want to lead as fathers. We want to lead as men. We want to lead as husbands. We want to lead in our community. You're listening to this because you want to be a leader. If you are listening to this and you're like, nah, I don't really want to lead in any area of my life, then you're listening to the wrong podcast and you're part of the wrong community. Because the men here want to lead. They want to make a difference. But we want to lead in our home and our business. But a leader who doesn't read is like a chef who doesn't eat. It just doesn't make sense. Challenge yourself. Get a book. I just read a book. I'm not going to name it. I disagreed with the entire book. I disagreed with it. But I finished it because I thought it was important for me to understand a different perspective than I had to challenge me in my own thought process so that I became more knowledgeable of another side of an argument that I might have, another side of a perspective that I haven't seen because maybe I'm putting myself in a silo. Intellectual growth is super important. For us to feel like we're being successful emotionally, physically, professionally, relationally, whatever, you need to also be moving ahead intellectually. It just clears your brain, it keeps you motivated, and it keeps you moving. I think the last one I haven't touched on is spiritual. Man, this is hard for me. You're talking to a guy who, listening to a guy, I guess we're not talking. I'd love to talk to you, by the way. Callwithcam.com, book a time. I'd love to just chat with you. But you're listening to a guy that stepped away from the church for what's like 15, 16 years. I didn't step away from my faith, but I stepped away from a church, from a community that I was part of that I thought wasn't meeting my needs. Now, that was my perception. If that's the truth, I don't know. I'm going to have to dig into that. But you're talking to a guy, again, we're not talking yet. We will talk. You're listening to a guy who did that, walked away for that amount of time. Well, I couldn't go jump back into going to church and doing the Bible study, doing the small group and the men's group and the devotionals every morning and my prayer list and prayer. I can't do that. That is not me. If I try to do those things, I'm going to fail. So I challenge you to grow 1%. Pray. Read the Bible 1 time a day. That's it. 1 verse a day and pray. That's a great place to start. Then, as that begins to gain momentum, make it 2 verses a day. Join a small group. Dive into a community of men who are going to challenge you to grow in this area. So I hope this has been valuable for you. I was just going through the last 30 amazing episodes. Can't believe we're already that far in. I think we're 31 now. 31 episodes of the Dad's Making Difference podcast. I wanted to reflect on what it is and what it is not. This is not a sounding board for me to tell you what I think you should do, that I'm right, you're wrong, that the experts, quote unquote experts we have in on the show are the ones that I want you all to follow. No, what this is, it's an opportunity to learn from each other. It's an opportunity to bring in people with areas of expertise who, in some way or another, have gone through challenges in their own life, are sharing their experience, their expertise with you so you can avoid the landmines that they stepped on in their journey so that you can grow. So that you can grow. I'm going to say them again because I want to just, I don't want to just beat this into you, but I want you to remember this so that you can grow emotionally, physically, financially, professionally, intellectually, and spiritually. That's why we're here each and every week, to challenge you to grow in one of those areas. I would love to hear how you've grown over the last 6 months. I would love to hear how you want to grow over the next 6 months. Like I said, let's chat. Callwithcam.com. You can go there. You can book a call right with me, not with some person on my team. They're all great, by the way, but with me, one-to-one, to get to know each other. Or send me a message, cam@dmdmastermind.com. I'd love to chat with you, learn a little bit more about you. So I want to talk about the DMD Mastermind. Little segue here. We're launching it. It's going. We have a beta group in the works. The DMD Mastermind is committed to helping men grow spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially, intellectually, and professionally. It is bringing men together who have their own areas of expertise in a group where they can speak into the lives of other men, where they come as givers to speak into the lives of other men, to push those men forward, and then in return have other men speak into their lives. We will meet each and every week. We do so on Zoom. We dive into a topic. We dive into our wins, into our accountability, into our challenges. And then we give each of our members an opportunity to be in the hot seat, to go into some area of their life that they're working through right now and have their community of brothers support them through that. That's the Dad's Making Difference Mastermind. Not to mention, we are going to meet right now. It looks like twice a year. I'd love it to be each and every quarter, but twice a year, we're going to get together. We're going to climb mountains together. We're going to adventure together. We're going to meet in the Rocky Mountains, one of my favorite places, because I think it signifies growth and power, resistance, summiting those areas in our life. If you want to learn more about the Dad's Making a Difference podcast, and to see if you're fit, go to dmdmastermind.com. Fill out the application, book a call with me. I'd love to chat with you and get you into our group, get you into our brotherhood of men who are committed to helping each other grow. Thank you, my friend. I hope you have a fantastic week. I appreciate you for listening to this episode of the Dad's Making Difference podcast.